Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking on a topic that it really sits at the very core of our society. It's something many of us just assume we understand. Crime, justice, the role of prisons.
Right. It feels so fundamental, doesn't it?
Exactly. It seems like a pillar of how we operate. We're sort of taught to believe crime is just inherently wrong, you know?
And that justice is this universal good.
Yeah, and that prisons, they exist to punish people who do wrong, keep us safe. It's a story, a narrative that's really deeply woven into how we think. Seems obvious, almost.
Almost self-evident.
But what if?
Yeah.
What if our basic assumptions about all this crime, justice, why we lock people up, what if they were challenged, fundamentally?
Challenged how?
Like, what if the system isn't just, flawed and trying to get justice, but it's actually working exactly like it was designed to?
Designed for what, though?
Well, for purposes far removed from simple morality. Things like profit, power, social control.
Okay. That's a provocative thought.
It is. And that's what we're going to grapple with in this deep dive, our mission today. To pull back the curtain a bit, explore the surprising, sometimes pretty unsettling, mechanics behind the whole incarceration system, especially how it works in the U.S.
So asking if it's truly about justice or something else entirely.
Precisely. Is it about that abstract ideal? Or is it operating on a much more complex, maybe even cynical set of motivations?
And you mentioned sources.
Yes. Our insights today come from some powerful critiques. We're drawing heavily from excerpts from really eye-opening source. The incarceration industry, profit, power, and social design.
Ah, okay.
And this work, it's deeply informed by the, let's say, provocative ideas of Fresco. It really challenges these deeply ingrained assumptions.
About who criminals are, what justice means.
Exactly. And why we have such staggering incarceration rates. So our goal for you, listening, is to unpack these complex ideas. We want to illuminate the economic, the political forces at play here, and to give you a shortcut, maybe, to being truly well-informed about a system that affects millions, directly and indirectly.
Sounds like a heavy topic, but an important one.
Definitely. Okay, let's unpack this.
What's fascinating here, I think, is that to really get what we're about to discuss, you kind of need to shift your perspective, like fundamentally.
How so?
We have to move beyond seeing justice as just this abstract moral goal, some noble thing we're aiming for.
Okay.
Instead, our sources really push us to see the incarceration system as, well, a state-managed industry.
An industry.
Like
manufacturing.
Exactly like that in some ways. Think of it as this huge, complex enterprise. It's got massive budgets, right?
Sure.
It has tons of powerful stakeholders, people and groups with vested interests. It has built-in incentives for growth. And crucially, it generates very substantial financial returns for the people operating within it.
Oh, okay. Seeing it as an industry changes things.
It really does. So to guide us through this landscape, we'll focus on two main pillars today. First, we'll dive into that foundational critique, mostly from Fresco, about how society even defines crime and justice in the first place, like questioning the very bedrock.
Right, challenging the basics.
Exactly. Then, second, we'll pivot. We'll look at the detailed, often kind of hidden mechanisms that make mass incarceration not just possible, but really lucrative. Profitable and politically useful, let's say, for a whole range of different players.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a deep dive that's probably going to challenge some preconceived notions. It reveals a system that's way more complex than it looks on the surface.
That framing, calling it an industry, not just a moral thing, that's powerful. And honestly, a bit chilling.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. It sets the stage perfectly for part one then. Rethinking crime and justice through Fresco's critique. It really challenges that simple story we get about, individual bad choices.
Right. The bad apple idea.
Exactly. So Fresco starts by challenging the whole idea of criminals as just inherently bad people. He doesn't see it that way.
So not born evil.
Nope. He argues they aren't born evil, not inherently flawed in some fixed way. Instead, he says they're profoundly shaped by the conditions they grew up in, the environments they live on.
That's a critical distinction.
Huge. It shifts the focus, doesn't it? Away from just blaming the individual's morality towards looking at the environment, the systemic factors.
Like poverty, lack of opportunity.
All of it. Think about economic disadvantage, a constant grinding struggle for basics, lack of good education, few real opportunities. For many people, that's the reality from day one.
So it's not just about making bad choices.
Fresco would say the choices are severely limited to begin with, then add chronic stress. That stuff can physiologically mess with brain development, decision-making, planning.
Leading to more impulsive actions, maybe. Or just focusing on surviving now.
Exactly. And woven through all that, Systemic inequities, biases in housing, jobs, healthcare, even the justice system itself. These aren't accidents. They're built into the structure.
Creating huge barriers for some communities.
Right. So these factors, our sources explain, they kind of conspire to create environments where things we label as crime, well, they can become survival mechanisms.
Not about choosing bad in a vacuum.
More like making desperate choices in really tough situations with very few good options.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about people who do make it out?
And here's where Fresco's analysis gets really interesting. He has this nuanced observation. Seems contradictory at first, but it actually reinforces his point about conditioning.
Okay.
He notes that some people, even after they successfully climb out of those disadvantaged backgrounds, maybe get wealthy, get status, sometimes they continue patterns of exploitation, even corruption.
Wait, even when they have everything, why would they do that?
Exactly the question. But Fresco says it's tied to their formative stress, the worldview shaped by those early experiences.
The memory of scarcity.
Yeah, the deep-seated memories of scarcity, the constant struggle, the competition. Those things fundamentally shape how they relate to money, power, even morality. It's not just wiped clean by getting rich.
So it's like a deep behavioral pattern, not just circumstance.
That's the idea. It shows the imprint of upbringing goes way deeper than their current bank balance. So that this perspective, it really messes with that simple good versus bad story we tell ourselves, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
What does this really imply then about individual responsibility versus society's influence? How does it complicate things?
Well, it's a crucial point Fresco hammers home. He's not saying individuals aren't accountable, right? But he is saying the roots of behavior run incredibly deep, deeper than just the present moment.
So our idea of responsibility might be too narrow.
Often, yes. It often fails to really account for that profound, lasting impact of your formative environment. Good and bad aren't these fixed, inherent things. They're heavily influenced by the systems, the experiences that shape you. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, Fresco's critique goes beyond just individuals. It looks at the whole fabric of society.
How so?
He highlights how our culture itself, through common sayings, accepted wisdom, can actually normalize, even kind of celebrate exploitative behavior.
Make it seem okay or even smart.
Exactly. Making it seem not just acceptable, but maybe clever, necessary even. It's not just a few bad actors. It's a collective mindset that sort of permeates everything.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Our sources point to proverbs like, a sucker is born every minute, or that other one, a fool and his money are soon parted.
Right, I've heard those. They sound like warnings, maybe. Be careful.
On the surface, yeah. But Fresco argues they reflect something deeper, a societal acceptance, maybe even an endorsement of taking advantage of others.
Instead of valuing fairness.
Or empathy or collective well-being. These sayings subtly promote a kind of predatory outlook. They get embedded in our language, shaping how we see things.
So they basically rationalize selfishness, make it seem okay, even clever.
According to Fresco, yeah. They subtly give permission. If someone can be exploited, well, maybe it's their own fault for being naive, right? That's the underlying message. So, when ideas like that are deeply embedded in the culture, you have to ask, how does that influence the structures we build? The legal systems we create?
Do those cultural norms then get baked into our laws? Maybe without us even realizing it.
That's the implication, a feedback loop where culture reinforces the legal mechanisms for exploitation.
That's a really sharp insight. If our culture teaches us that vulnerability is an opportunity,
Yeah,
it warps our whole idea of justice.
exactly.
And this leads right into Fresco's next big critique.
Yeah.
The idea of justice itself. He says it's not some natural, universal truth, handed down from above.
So what is it then?
It's a construct, something rooted purely in human beliefs,
Yeah.
often historically tied to religion or social norms. It's an invention, basically, a framework we created, not objective reality.
Okay, but how does he show that?
He uses this really tight example. It highlights how subjective our judgments are. Imagine this. Someone does something terrible to another person. Later, completely unrelated, that first person dies in an accident. Some people might say, justice, or karma. Right. There's this sense of satisfaction, cosmic balance.
I can see that happening.
But now, imagine a totally innocent person suffers the exact same accident, same event, same suffering. What do we call it then?
A tragedy. Awful.
Exactly. The identical outcome, interpreted completely differently, based only on our human judgment of the person involved.
That inconsistency.
Fresco says it vividly shows his point. Justice, right, wrong, good, bad. They're subjective human inventions, not objective truths. He stresses that all laws made
Right.
by humans, by us, not by nature.
So when we say serving justice or justice prevail,
You're talking about upholding our constructed system, not some universal law. So what are the implications if our legal frameworks are entirely constructed, not based on objective truth? How does that change how we see law itself?
this raises an important question, doesn't it? If justice is a human construct, well, whose humans are doing the constructing?
All right, who gets to decide?
And whose interests are being served by these constructs we create? Fresco points out that, historically anyway, laws have mainly functioned to serve and protect the powerful, the elite.
They weren't made in a vacuum of fairness.
No. They were shaped by those holding the levers of control, often designed to reinforce their own positions.
Can you give a historical example?
Our sources mention earlier times, kings, powerful rulers. They could have as many wives, consorts, whatever, as they wanted.
Yeah.
And within their culture, their class, that wasn't seen as immoral. It was often normalized, accepted, a perk of being in power.
So what was lawful, or even moral, was dictated by the rulers.
Frequently, yes. It shows how morality and legality can be defined by those in power to suit their own practices. It's not just ancient history, it highlights a principle.
Okay.
Then Fresco takes this argument somewhere maybe more provocative. He looks at a law we all know. Thou shalt not steal.
Seems pretty universal, right? Don't take what's not yours.
On the surface, yes, but Fresco argues it implicitly, primarily, protects property owners.
How
Now think about it. Historically, and often still today, who is really in a position to steal in a way that threatens the social order? Often it's those with little or nothing. Taking out of necessity, maybe?
While the wealthy.
The wealthy were the ones who historically had the property, had the power to write and enforce the laws protecting those assets. The very definition of stealing comes from those who have property.
So the law preserves the status quo.
From Fresco's viewpoint, yes. Laws are fundamentally created, maintained to preserve existing power and privilege. They criminalize actions threatening the wealthy, while often legitimizing their own practices, which might be exploitative in other ways.
Wow. It really serves as a bulwark for the existing hierarchy.
That's the argument.
And that connects to another really thought-provoking idea from Fresco. This persistence of corruption,
Yeah.
how deep these constructs go.
What do you mean?
He suggests that even if we imagined a world where everyone was rich, everyone had plenty, corruption might still exist.
Even with abundance.
Why? Because people might hold on to the ingrained memories of scarcity, the worldview shaped by it.
The psychological leftovers.
Exactly. It's not just about having money now, it's how your past, the struggle, the competition, continues to shape your behavior, your ethics, even when things are good. That drive to secure your position could linger.
Leading to new forms of exploitation, maybe?
Yeah.
Hoarding. Abuse of power.
Could be. And you can see echoes of this in things that are perfectly legal today, but problematic from Fresco's view.
Like what?
Think about banking, lending money at interest.
Yeah.
Financial markets. These are not only legal, they're the backbone of our economy.
Sure.
Yet Fresco sees them as inherently exploitative, extracting value from those with less for the benefit of those with capital.
And he argues it's no accident they're legal.
Exactly. Because the institutions benefiting most banks, corporations, their stakeholders, they wield immense influence. They're positioned to shape the legal system itself.
To make sure their profitable practices stay legitimate.
Right. So what does this all mean, wrapping up part one? Fresco's overarching view is crime and justice. Not about inherent moral flaws, not objective truths. They're symptoms of a specific social design.
So criminal behavior comes from specific conditions.
Economic, cultural conditions, and our legal frameworks, ultimately shaped to protect the powerful, maintain the hierarchy. It's a challenging lens, isn't it?
It really is.
So if crime isn't just about bad people making bad choices,
Yeah.
then what is driving our massive incarceration rates, especially in the U.S.?
That's exactly the pivot we need to make now. Once you start questioning those foundations about justice, the focus shifts right onto the economics.
The money trail.
Undeniably. Our sources make it crystal clear there's a lucrative, very intricate how behind mass incarceration. We move from the philosophical to the hard, cold cash.
You asked why it's profitable. Let's get into the nuts and bolts.
Okay, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, you see the prison system isn't just a cost or a public service for punishment. It really is, as we said, a business model, an entire industry.
More than just a government function.
Much more. Our sources present it not just as a public institution, but as this sprawling, self-sustaining economic ecosystem designed for profit, power, and, yes, social control.
Okay, break that down. What industries are we talking about?
Well, beyond the obvious, private prison companies, names like CoreCivic, GEO Group come up a lot, but they're just the visible part.
The tip of the iceberg.
Totally. Imagine the scale. You've got huge food contractors feeding millions of meals daily across thousands of facilities.
Okay.
You've got surveillance tech firms constantly selling the latest gear, biometric scanners, drones, you name it. Uniform suppliers, clothing prisoners, and staff.
Construction.
Massive construction firms building, expanding, maintaining these places, and then a whole complex web of medical service providers, doctors, nurses, drug companies managing inmate health, or lack thereof.
So every single prisoner.
Translates directly into more money. For prison operators, public or private. More staff needed, guards, admin, medical folks. That's a huge job sector right there.
More contracts for services.
Food, healthcare, security. It fuels those industries. And ultimately, more government money gets allocated to law enforcement, public safety budgets. It's a cycle.
A self-sustaining economic ecosystem, you called it.
Exactly. It turns caging people into a profit center, instead of seeing it as a societal failure that needs fixing at the root.
That's deeply unsettling. Turning confinement into a profit center that needs more confinement to grow.
It is.
And one of the most, frankly, shocking parts of this business model, ensuring the profit keeps flowing no matter what, is how private prisons get guaranteed revenue.
Ah, the contracts.
Yes, it's grimly ingenious how they insulate themselves. The specifics are really revealing. These companies, CoreCivic, GEO Group, they sign contracts with governments, state, federal.
And these contracts have guarantees.
Often, yes. Minimum occupancy rate guarantees. We're talking like 80%, 90% capacity sometimes.
80%. Wow.
Think about what that means. It's not just a hope they'll have prisoners. It's a contractual obligation for the state.
So even if crime drops,
Even if crime rates fall, fewer people are being sentenced, the community is safer. Taxpayers are still on the hook to pay for those empty beds.
that creates a massive incentive.
A direct, undeniable financial incentive for law enforcement, for courts, to keep those beds full. It puts systemic pressure on the whole system.
to maintain the flow of inmates.
Right. So the focus shifts, sneakily. It stops being just about safety or rehabilitation or reducing crime. It becomes about hitting those quotas.
Ensuring the public money flows to the private contractors.
Exactly. Think about it like this. Imagine your local public hospital had a guaranteed minimum occupancy rate. Taxpayers pay whether people are sick or not. What would that say about its priorities?
It would twist the mission entirely.
That's the argument here. It profoundly twists the mission, making imprisonment a commodity to be supplied.
And what's fascinating here, and yeah, deeply disturbing, is how the actual laws, the U.S. Constitution even, get used to make this happen, often at the expense of basic human dignity.
How
We have to talk about the loophole in the 13th Amendment. Everyone knows it abolished slavery, right?
Right.
But there's that crucial exception, except as a punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted.
Ah, the exception clause.
It's not just a historical footnote. It's absolutely central to exploiting incarcerated labor today. It effectively creates a system of, well, modern involuntary servitude.
How does that work in practice?
Prisoners work for pennies an hour, sometimes 15 cents, 80 cents an hour in state prisons.
Pennies.
And often, especially in federal prisons or for institutional jobs, they get no pay at all.
Zero.
Zero. So this isn't a small cost saving. It's a huge, virtually free labor pool, giving an enormous economic edge to whoever benefits.
And who benefits?
A massive range of companies. Our sources list names you definitely know: products for Victoria's Secret, processing coffee beans for Starbucks, food for McDonald's, parts for Boeing planes.
Seriously, big corporations.
And government agencies, too, making license plates, office furniture, even staffing call centers. It's everywhere.
Is this work voluntary?
Often, no. Inmates are frequently coerced, forced into it under threat of punishment.
Punishment like what?
Solitary confinement, which is brutal, losing privileges, family visits, education programs, maybe even impacting parole eligibility. It makes already harsh conditions even worse.
So they're compelled to work.
Which is why our sources call it modern slavery rebranded. It operates under the guise of corrections, rehab, but really, it's a vast, exploitable labor pool for corporate and government gain. undermines any real sense of justice.
It really makes you rethink the cost of everyday things, doesn't it? Where they might come from.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't start with the labor. Beyond that, many inmates get systematically loaded up with massive fines, court fees, creating another layer of
A
profit.
debt cycle.
Exactly. A self-perpetuating cycle of debt and reincarceration. It keeps people tied to the system long after they're technically released.
What kind of fees are we talking about?
It's way beyond just fines for the crime itself. There are pay-to-stay fees.
Pay-
Yeah. They literally charge people for the cost of their own imprisonment, send them a bill for being in jail or prison.
That's unbelievable.
Isn't it? You're locked up, lose everything, then get a bill for the privilege, plus fees for public defenders, probation supervision, electronic monitoring, drug tests, court admin costs.
It just piles up, designed to extract money from people at their lowest point.
Totally. And the consequence is devastating. People leave prison facing huge debts. Impossible to pay when you're also trying to find a job with a record, find housing.
Setting them up to fail.
And here's the truly insidious part. If you can't pay these debts, it can lead directly back to prison or extended parole, suspended licenses, trapping them.
A feedback loop.
Ah.
State-sanctioned extortion, basically.
That's what it sounds like. And think about the industries that thrive on this. Bail bondsmen, holding people hostage financially before trial, parole monitoring services, charging fees, even some rehab centers get tangled up in it.
All extracting money from people caught in that cycle.
Yeah. It really feels like a system designed to keep people, especially poor people, locked in. How can anyone truly reintegrate, rebuild a life when they're instantly crushed by debt like that?
It makes it virtually impossible for many. It reinforces that idea. Once you're in the system, getting truly out is incredibly hard.
Okay, so we have direct profit from operations, from labor, from debt.
Yeah.
What about the government itself? Do they benefit beyond just, punishing crime?
Oh, absolutely. Beyond the direct financial flows to contractors and such, governments themselves gain significantly from mass incarceration. Through increased control, bigger budgets, more political leverage, it's a powerful tool for the state.
How does that work? Budgets, for instance.
Well, first, the perception of more criminals, whether real or manufactured by the system's incentives, directly justifies demands for larger police budgets. More funding for law enforcement, for the whole correctional system.
More perceived crime equals more money and power for the state's control apparatus.
Precisely. And then politically, being tough on crime is still a really effective platform for politicians trying to win elections.
It resonates with voters.
With a segment, yes. Allows politicians to rally support, promising crackdowns, which further solidifies the system's political necessity.
Okay. And you mentioned leverage.
Yes, and this is where it gets really insidious. Prison gerrymandering.
Gerrymandering. How does that relate to prisons?
This is where prisoners get counted in the census for the district where the prison is located, not their home district before they were locked up.
Okay.
So it artificially inflates the population numbers for those districts. These are often rural, often conservative areas where prisons get built.
Because of economic incentives, maybe?
Often, yeah. But here's the key. Their numbers boost the political power of that district. More representation, more federal funding, but the prisoners themselves usually can't vote. They're disenfranchised.
So their bodies count for political power, but their voices don't.
Exactly. More prisoners directly translate into more political power and influence for those controlling those districts. It allows certain agendas to get pushed with artificially boosted weight. Phantom constituents, essentially.
Wow. Using human beings as political capital. That's stark.
It really is. It raises that question. If the bodies of the incarcerated are used like this, how can claims of rehabilitation or justice hold up?
Yeah. And, okay, if you've ever wondered how all this prison building gets paid for,
Yeah.
you touched on something earlier. All the money that can be printed, all the debts that can be made.
Right, the funding mechanisms.
The expansion of the prison system is a massive driver of public debt. And it acts like this weird, almost perverse form of economic stimulus, creating what our sources called, what was it? A Keynesian hellscape.
That's a strong term.
It is. Let's break down the funding. It's not usually about moving money from, say, education to prisons.
So where does it come from?
Often it's funded through municipal bonds, federal grants. So local and state governments take on new, huge debts to build and run these places.
Increasing public debt overall.
Massively. And this debt accumulation, it justifies more taxes later, contributes to inflation, and it solidifies state control over huge amounts of capital. Money that could go elsewhere.
To address root causes, education, healthcare, community development.
Exactly. Instead, it gets diverted to sustain and grow this system. It's a self-reinforcing cycle where the solution becomes a bigger burden.
And you mentioned stimulus. How does that work?
Well, you hear this argument, right? Prisons bring jobs to struggling areas. Our sources say they're often presented exactly that way, an economic fix for towns hit by deindustrialization.
Build a prison, get jobs for guards, admin, construction.
Seen as a way to revive the local economy. But the stark reality, the chilling part, is this Keynesian hellscape idea.
Explain that again.
It means the very act of locking people up, human confinement, suffering, the destruction of freedom, it's being leveraged as a twisted form of economic productivity, a stimulus based on human misery, not genuine growth.
Wow. So the system is incentivized not just by direct profit, but by these broader economic and political games, too.
Embedding it even deeper into our society and economy.
Which brings us to the ultimate point, perhaps. Beyond the money, beyond the politics, mass incarceration serves a profound ideological purpose. It's a powerful tool for social control.
Okay, what does that mean, ideologically?
Well, think about that common question. But what about the criminals? Don't they deserve punishment? That question usually assumes justice is some natural moral truth, right? Separate from us.
Yeah, that feels intuitive.
But under state control, our sources argue crime is what the state says it is, and justice is what serves the system. The definitions aren't fixed. They shift to serve existing power structures.
Okay.
And putting people in cages, especially on the scale we see in the U.S., it sends a very clear message to everyone else.
Obey or else?
Basically, obey the state's rules or face the worst consequences, loss of freedom, dignity, everything. It's a stark display of state power.
And that fosters fear.
It actively cultivates fear, fosters dependence on the state for protection, subtly reinforcing its authority. We keep you safe from the bad guys.
Right.
And crucially, maybe most insidiously, it distracts everyone.
Distracts from what?
From the deeper economic, political systems that often cause the poverty, the inequality, the violence in the first place, by focusing intensely on individual criminals, individual bad choices.
It shifts blame away from the system itself.
Exactly. It prevents a critical look at the broader structures that create the conditions for crime. So this raises an important question. If the system is really about managing populations through punishment and control, not fixing root causes, what does that mean for real societal progress?
That is a truly profound question, expert, and it's one we definitely hope you, our listener, will keep thinking about.
Yeah.
So let's try to recap this deep dive. We started by challenging our usual understanding of crime and justice.
Looking at Fresco's critique.
Right, arguing they're less about universal morals, more about social, economic, legal constructs, shaped by the powerful.
How people are shaped by environments, how culture normalizes exploitation.
How justice and law are human inventions, often serving the elite. That wasn't just philosophy. It set the stage for understanding the system we actually have.
Then we peeled back the layers.
Yeah, looking at the incarceration industry, the hidden web of profit driving it. We talked about guaranteed government contracts, those occupancy quotas.
Perverse incentives?
Totally. The 13th Amendment loophole, allowing nearly free labor, benefiting huge companies and government itself.
The debt trap. Fines, fees, pay to stay.
Keeping people locked in a cycle of state-sanctioned extraction. Then the political leverage, bigger budgets, prison gerrymandering, inflating power.
And that twisted economic logic, the Keynesian hellscape, where suffering becomes stimulus.
Right. And all of this brings us back to that central idea from our sources. This system, it might not be broken.
It might be working exactly as designed.
Exactly. Serving purposes far beyond what most of us typically imagine.
Which raises an important question for you, the learner, listening right now. This deep dive. We curated it to give you a fresh look, a critical perspective on something often just accepted.
Taken for granted.
Yeah. We wanted to challenge you to look past the surface stories, question those assumptions about justice, morality, to consciously see the deeper structures, economic, political, cultural, at play.
Because understanding is the first step.
Exactly. The value is realizing these systems aren't inevitable. They're designed by people, which means they can be redesigned, reformed, changed.
And on that note, here's a final provocative thought for you to carry with you. Something to mull over after this deep dive ends.
Okay.
If the systems we build truly reflect our society's deepest values, and if our current incarceration system, as these sources powerfully argue, is primarily designed for profit, power, and control, not rehab, not healing, not true justice.
Then what does that say about our collective values?
Exactly. What does that say about our values as a society? And maybe even more importantly, but what would a truly just system look like?
One that doesn't manufacture criminals.
Or profit from suffering? What would that look like for you, for your community, for the future?
That's a profound question.
It is something to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.